Never thought that I would accomplish what I've accomplished with my son, which is my greatest accomplishment. Taking a severely low functioning child with autism and turning him around to a fully functioning child. And I did that by addressing underlying biological conditions.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the brink from Prince George, British Columbia. And Prince George, British Columbia is about 500 miles north of Vancouver, 800 kilometers for our European listeners, and one of the most beautiful places on the planet. It is nature all around us. We see foxes, we see caribou, we see deer, we see black bears, grizzly bears. We have them all here and all close by. So it's an absolutely, totally beautiful place to live. Today we have a very special guest, actually. Her name is Tracy Slepcevic. Oh my goodness, did I say it close?
That's okay, Slepcevic. You got it.
Slepcevic. Yeah. So sorry about that, Tracy. Although I practiced a little bit before, but anyway. So Tracy is a very interesting guest for us because she is an author, a health coach, a keynote speaker, and she is also an Air Force veteran. So my goodness, quite a resume, Tracy. So tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your past, as to where you're from originally and where you are now.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, Lincoln Park, Michigan.
Okay.
And I joined the Air Force when I was 20 years old, and I was stationed in Northern California. And once I got out, I always wanted to live in San Diego. So I packed up my stuff and I moved to San Diego. In 2004, I met my husband. And in 2005, I had my little boy. And in 2009, my son was diagnosed with autism. And thus began my journey.
Yeah. So you have one boy?
I have one son.
What's his name?
Noah.
Noah. Nice. So now the other question that I have is that I always like to know about your family. Obviously, your husband, is very much part of all of this. Your career and the things that you're doing. And as I know for myself, I'm very, very active. We'll talk about both of us, but in order to do that successfully, you need partners in life that that are supportive of all the things that you do. Very, very important. And then, so what's your husband's name?
Steve.
Steve. So initially Detroit. How long were you in the Air Force?
4 years.
4 years. And so the reason that I asked the question, and it's somewhat close to me, because I also I was born in Holland, and at the risk of giving away my age, I'm just joking because it's easy enough, I was born November the 1st, 1940. So I just turned, about 2 weeks ago, I turned 83. And I was born in northeastern Holland. Have you been in Holland?
I have not.
That's another place I want you to go. Go to Holland, because that fits all the things that you do. It's an amazing place to bike ride, beautiful, beautiful country. And again, very, very nice place to be. So I was born there during the second...
So I actually had a film crew come out when Noah was about 8 years old and did a story on Noah.
From where?
From Holland. They were from Holland. Yeah.
Oh, no. How did he know about Noah? How did he find out about it?
So they reached out to me. They saw my name on a list through Generation Rescue as a rescue angel. And they got my contact. They reached out to me and said, we are doing a documentary on children who have made a dramatic recovery from low functioning autism to high functioning autism. And so I was in. They came out, they did some filming. They did a little video, and they did several stories on many families, and it was it was great.
Amazing. Really, so what I find so amazing these days in particular, when did they do that? How many years ago?
Gosh, this was probably about 10 years ago.
Oh my God, so,
Because Noah is 18 now.
oh, he's 18. Oh my goodness. And how is he doing?
He's doing great. He's fully functioning. He drives. He goes to college. He works. He lives a very normal life.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? So, and if I think about that 10 years ago, now, so, and especially for somebody like myself that, that is a couple of generations back, really, when I grew up, more than a couple actually, but in any event, so when I first came to Canada, my interaction with my family was by telegram. Hope you're doing well, stop. I'm okay, stop. I found a job, stop. If you can send me some money, that would be helpful, stop, and that kind of a thing. And it would take days and days. Now, I pick up my cell phone and I push the button and I say, hey, how are you doing there? Want to see my picture? Here I am. And just like that, from around, isn't it amazing? And
It is. I remember, walking around with the home phone and the long cord and wrapping it around everything and to get into my bedroom.
yeah, and the shoe, the big, there's my cell phone. So it's amazing what has happened. What I find also amazing is with Noah that somebody from virtually the other side of the world connected with you in regards to those issues, autism and other ones, that they were not so much in the news then, or people did not have that much knowledge about them, I thought. And, right?
Not back then. No, it's way more prevalent now, but not back then.
Yeah. So on the same topic that you may or may not know if you saw my bio is that I was diagnosed with ADHD through myself more than anything. Is that I came to Canada and I was not very successful in school. I failed grade 3, I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said, what are we going to do with these guys? Do we send them to the mentally challenged school or do we get them a trade of some sort? And my parents were beautiful people and they said, we'll get them a trade. So and my dad was in the lumber industry and they said, okay, and I loved lumber and my great-grandfather was a master carpenter and I loved all that stuff. So they sent me to a furniture factory to start working at 14. And then in the evenings I would go to college and learn other things, but I loved the furniture work. But the other part about it was that having failed grade 7, kids among each other are not always very nice, as you well know, and not tactful necessarily. And so when I had to get coveralls and became a laborer, all my friends that went on to college, university, and on, I became a laborer. Now I'm proud of that today, but then it was a little bit hard. So I always felt that I was just as good as everybody else, right? And I had to prove it to me, not to anybody else, to me. And then some of the things that had an effect on my life is that in Northern Holland, or in Holland, we were obviously in the Second World War from 1940 to 1945, and the town where we lived in northeastern Holland was liberated by the Canadian Army April the 12th, 1945. And it made such an impression on me that I always knew from that point forward I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And, and so I was trying to go when I was 17, and my parents wouldn't let me then. And then, and you find this one interesting, I was drafted into the Air Force. And I was in the Air Force for 2 years. And 30 months actually in Special Forces. I wanted to be a pilot, and now they put me in Special. I have no idea why, but that's where I ended up. It was good training, but it served me well in the long term. So that's what I did. And then 3 or 4 years after that, when I was 23, I left and already had a career somewhat and was doing well, but I wanted to go to the land of my heroes, Canada. So I left Holland, went to Canada. I wanted to start with nothing. And I had 1 suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and then couldn't speak the language, didn't know anybody, didn't have a job. And so, but I wanted to have another dream. I wanted to build my own lumber mill. And the timber is in British Columbia. And so I knew I wanted to go to British Columbia, Vancouver. And so I flew into Montreal, took the train across Canada. That's a long way to go. It's 4 nights, 5 nights, 4 days. Sometimes I just wanted to walk alongside of it because it's going so slow compared to Europe. Anyway, so when I came here, went to the immigration office in Vancouver. Fortunately, it was a German fella, and I said to him, what I wanted to build my own lumber mill. And he said, Prince George, that's a boom town, and they're building mills, and that's where the opportunities are. So when I came off the bus here, about 3 blocks away from here, nearly 60 years ago, I had my suitcase, my 3 books, the 2 sets of clothes, no job, didn't know anybody, needed a job, and I had in my pocket exactly $25.47.
Oh, wow.
But the other thing that I had is attitude. No matter how tough the day is, that I'll swear it'll be better tomorrow. The glass to me is always half full. I had passion. Whatever I do, I give it everything. And then the other one I have is work ethic. I work harder than anybody. And what will follow is success. My employees did that for me. And so when I came off the bus here and then became a cleanup man and did all the other things that you do and worked with my hands and then gradually worked my way up. Within a year and a half, I was superintendent of one of the larger mills and then gradually built my own companies. And then something else happened to me that impacted my life is that I was not very good. I already had companies and was successful, and everybody said, oh my God, you're so successful. I didn't feel that. I still felt I had failed. And then an ex-sister-in-law dragged me to an organization that impacted my life substantially from there on forward. And that was Toastmasters. And so you familiar with Toastmasters or heard about it?
No.
No, okay. You should, I'm suggesting, Google it at some point. Anyway, it's an organization. There are millions of people around the world that are directly or indirectly involved with Toastmasters. There are clubs all, in particular in North America, the United States in particular, where virtually every community has Toastmaster clubs where they can develop their skill sets in terms of becoming better communicators. That includes listening, speaking on your feet, and being able to improve.
Did you say Toastmasters?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't get it because your accent.
Okay. Oh, I always think you guys got accent. No, I'm just joking. So sorry about that.
No, I've definitely heard
now, right?
of it. Yes.
Yeah, you're with me now.
I got it.
yeah. So in any event, so so, and I went to the first meeting, and I was sitting there among those people, and I said to my sister, "You're not going to ask me any questions, are they? No, they just sit there and listen, so that and then we'll see what happens." So during the middle of the meeting, somebody said, "Hey, John, why don't you tell us about you?" And I said, "Oh my God, I'll never go back here." So I had this fear of, being in a public setting, of having to speak about things. And I did go back. I stayed there for 10 years, and I became what they call the highest level in Toastmaster is becoming a distinguished Toastmaster. And I did that, competed in a number of areas, and it changed my life in terms of today I believe in demand public speaker in many occasions, many places, and all over the place. Obviously, I'm also an author. But the other point that I thought was of interest likely is that, so when I was already here, coming here in 1965, for 32 years, in 1997, I walked into a store here, and not this book, but I picked up a book, and I still don't know why I did that, and that particular book, and the title of the book was Driven to Distraction. And as I looked into the book, it was about ADHD. And I said, oh my God, that's me. And so I wrote in the book, and I was sitting there and going through the book, and finally the guy that owned the store said, we're going to buy it or what? No, he didn't quite say that. But in any event, I did buy it. I wrote in the book in Dutch, now I finally know who I am. And it was January 1997. And so I was already 57 years old then. And and the more I found out about ADHD and wanting to Google, obviously initially I was ashamed of it, and because there was a stigma against being potentially mentally challenged. And now I'm building my company, and I already have 6-7 different companies and building it up. And what am I going to do? Go to the bank and say I want to have a project that I want to do. It will be X amount of hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. And I have to tell you, I have a mental disorder. So then they would say, well, have a nice day, right? So we're not interested. So obviously, gradually the stigma disappeared. And so, but it took me still 5 years before I went to my doc, who delivered our 2 daughters and was a personal friend, until I went into his office, and he said, why are you here, John? And I said, I think I got ADHD. And that was in 1962. And so, and we looked at it, and he said, yeah, you do. And so I become more knowledgeable about it, and then increasingly included in presentations that I did. And then at some point, I wrote a book about it as well, because I thought that was important to share that with others. And the book is titled ADHD Unlocked, and very popular actually. But it kind of created the connections between not being successful academically, obviously, in Holland, the war years that had an adverse effect, ADHD, the inner child, and then going through a difficult schooling period, and then changing my life, starting all over again by going to the land of my heroes, Canada, and then being able to become more skillful on interacting with people, and then in addition to that, finding out about that I'm a classic example of ADHD. I call it a superpower. And so, and then And so I may well be a late bloomer. So now what I do, I write books. I have 2 on the go right now that will come out next year at 83, 84. I'm an active speaker and I'm fairly successful in business. And I wrote another book about that actually as well. Somebody they said to me, "You should write a book about all the things that you've done." And I said, so I did that for about 20 years. Writing books is not easy, as you well know, I'm sure. And so they said, write a book. So I started. So this book
it's selling the book that's the hardest thing. It's
and that then
marketing
is
and
that
selling.
correct, and so I worked on the book, stop, and then finally I said, if I don't do it now, I won't get done. So I wrote this book, Against All Odds. And it's not about hurrah, how successful John is. It's to the contrary, how difficult it was along the way in the story, the ups and downs, and staying the course and never give up. I'm convinced, for the same reason that you say, that I've done 3 books here that are laying here. Another one is, we'll talk about a little bit later, Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And that these will sell 1 million copies. That I'm convinced. It may take time, but they will. So and I'm a believer, and I'll just keep going and moving forward. And this is my goal. That's where I want to get, and that's where I'm going.
Well, we seem to have had like very similar paths.
Yes.
When I was younger, I definitely struggled in school. And no matter how hard I studied, I couldn't focus. Now that I deal with menopause, it's like brain fog is back. Never thought in a million years I would write a book. Never thought that I would accomplish what I've accomplished with my son, which is my greatest accomplishment. Taking a severely low functioning child with autism and turning him around to a fully functioning child. And I did that by addressing underlying biological conditions. So, we all have those genetic predispositions, but there's going to be something environmental that triggers that predisposition, right? And so my job was to get my PhD overnight in how to heal my kid.
Yeah.
And back then, it was much easier. So much more is censored these days. And I was able to Google healing autism. And this was 2008 when my naturopathic doctor told me that Noah was going to be fine. And I always say that my journey was very divinely led. In my worst moments of despair, where I didn't know what to do for my son, and the only thing the pediatrician could ever tell me was, oh, it's normal, everything's normal, he's fine, he just needs speech, and couldn't bother to spend more than 5 minutes with my son, if she even spent the 5 minutes, and brushed me off. And 2 preschools that were like, I'm sorry, but your child has special needs. We can't have him here. We can't care for him. A regional center that lost my paperwork, and the evaluation itself was a joke anyway. So at this point, a mom, I knew something was wrong, because we have that inner knowing. And I truly say our intuition and our inner knowing is another way of God speaking to us. And so on this journey, I say God sent me angels. And when I didn't have, and I was at my lowest, he would send me somebody who would literally give me the answers. So a woman came to work for us for a short time. And the day I came in and my husband had hired her, that was the second preschool that said, we can't care for Noah. So I was crying, and she asked what was wrong. And she, by chance, had a son with autism. And so she's asking me a series of questions, and a part of me, because Noah regressed into a state of autism, and I won't reveal why. But after that, I had literally saw him in how he reached all his milestones when he was younger, and I'm like, oh no, he doesn't fall into that category. So I was very uncertain. And she said, well, he's 3 now. You should go through the school district and have him evaluated at the special needs preschool. And she had her son enrolled in that school. And I said, okay, best evaluation and best advice I ever got. And that was where I got all my answers. And literally, after I got all my answers, she resigned so she could be at home with her son. And I never saw her again. So apparently
Wow.
our sons went to the same school, and I never saw her. But this amazing woman came into my life for such a short time to tell me what to do, where to go, and how to do it.
She
And then on
changed
the day,
everything.
she did. She
Yeah.
did. And on the day that the preschool told me, your son has autism, I had to go back to the office. And I say there really are no accidents in life. So when I went back to the office, walking down the hall was my naturopathic doctor. And he saw me crying. Again, I'm a blubbery mess. And he asked me what's wrong. And I told him, well, Noah, it was diagnosed with autism. And he's like, he gives me this hug, and he backs up for a second, and he looks into my eyes, and he said, Noah is going to be fine. And I want you to go home, and I want you to do your research, because doctors are making great strides with biomedical intervention. Now,
Right.
I was very fascinated with medicine, with nutrition. Most of my education was in nutrition, and I was actually going to school for psychology, but I quickly dropped out. And from there, I sucked the tears back up into my eyes, and I went home and got to work. And I read every book I possibly could. I Googled healing autism, and I got so much information, so many references in which you will not get today. And I started going to conferences. I was educating myself. I was going to parent talks. I did whatever it was that I had to do in a very short time. So I always say I was a mom on a mission who had to get her PhD in a very short time. And I just started diet. I started cleaning out the gut. I had a child who couldn't speak. And within 3 months of just being on a very clean and strict diet, or I say lifestyle, he started to talk. And then from there, I probably threw everything at that kid but the kitchen sink, and I still do. And I feel that even though he's got severe autoimmune disorders, and so do I as well, there's always the next best thing out there. So I'm always doing my research and looking for that next treatment or therapy that's making a remarkable difference. And so I put together a conference, and we're doing our first conference February 2nd and 3rd of next year, called the Autism Health Summit. And I have some of the most amazing doctors in the industry that have been fighting tooth and nail for these kids. Scientists that have revealed so many underlying conditions and environmental factors that contribute to the regression of autism. And I am so blessed to be able to host this event. And I feel like this is the start of something so beautiful, because when my son was diagnosed with autism, the number one thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to bring parents together, and I wanted to have an event, and because I felt so alone, and I didn't want parents to feel like they were alone in the world. And so I now that my book has become a bestseller and it's done well and it's, sales are steady, I figured I would move on. And this is my next step, and I'm super excited about it.
The podcasting. And then as well, right? So because people are watching us from around the world, and then it has become, in a sense, and I can connect to that, an obligation that the journey that you had, and that other people have, and looking for direction, that you are helping them, and with your experiences that you have, and obviously the example is Noah, and then your ability to become a good writer and a good speaker, and timing is everything, right? So in a way I connect to, and as you can say, that's why it was so important for me to kind of give you a little bit of background about myself, and then being in that store and looking at that book, Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Hollywell, and that was in January 1997 that I found this book. I had no idea, and I had still thought for all those years at 58 that from the time of being 14 I was a failure, and I had to remove myself from Europe to start over new again, make it as difficult as it possibly could be to prove to me, not to other people, just to me, that I could do it. And it was not easy, as it is in the book and all those other things. And then Toastmasters added to that, and then the ability to write, and all gifts that I have. Obviously, underlying gifts. I've always been, amazingly, even when I failed in the schools, I was a good writer. And then obviously I'm a good speaker as well. Now I unlocked it through Toastmasters, and give me the confidence that I can do it. And then obviously the business is fine and it's successful, but to me that's not what it is about. How can I have an obligation to share my story with others for the purposes of saying that gives them confidence. If I can
Right.
do it,
And I 100% agree. I don't even claim to be a good writer or a good speaker. I claim to have written straight from my heart. And when I get up on a stage, I don't rehearse it. I don't even half the time know what I'm going to say, but I just speak from the heart. And that goes directly to those attendees. And when you showed me those 3 inspirational words on your plaque, I said that, and that 100% resonates with me, because mine is faith, just having the faith of a mustard seed, right? And it's the one Bible verse that I put in my book. And trusting the process, that we're all on our own beautiful journey, and a clear intention. Setting a clear intention is one of the most important things and the best thing that I could have ever done. Because what I did that day when I met that doctor in that hall was I set a clear intention that my son was going to live a normal functioning life.
exactly,
With no limitations for the future.
exactly.
And that was exactly what I did.
Yeah. And interesting, Tracy, because I do the same as you do. I speak from the heart. I'm a storyteller more than anything. That's probably the ability that made me a good writer, because that's what I do. And with all the things, they are sincerity from the heart and based on experience, So, and if it is a classroom that I talk to, or hundreds of people that are business people, whatever they are, is, I speak from the heart. That's what I do. And that's probably, why I'm successful at it, whatever that means, but for me, it's more sharing stories. And the other part, and especially dealing with younger people, is that saying that I did a presentation about a couple of weeks ago at a school with about 60 people and saying that. But I find a lot of times that we're too preoccupied how we look and how we this and we dress. And I say, we're all unique in our own way, you know, that have that confidence. You are special. Every single person is special in their own way. And to give them that confidence that and believe in dreams and then the other part that I usually around Remembrance Day, because I remember a lot of things from the Second World War. Even when I was 4 or 5 years old, my mom had then 3 kids. I was the youngest, and my sister was 1 year older, my brother 2 years older. My dad had been drafted into the Dutch army and was caught in the bombing of Rotterdam, and they didn't know for 5 years if he was alive or dead. So for 5 years he was trying to bring up this in a war setting that was pretty difficult, you know, and especially the winter of 1944-45 was the hunger winter, and at the same time, every day bombers, hundreds of bombers flew overhead, bombing Germany, and we were about 20 minutes away. And if again visualize northeastern Germany or Holland right up against Germany within 15 minutes from the border, in the distance we could see cities that had been bombed, and the sky, you could see it, and we would be outside, not because my mother brought us down there to look at the beautiful hundreds of planes, but she felt safer outside than inside. And then in the mornings, what we would do, we would get gunny sacks, and we would go into the railroad yards and pick up anything burnable or eatable. And even still today, I can feel the feeling of hunger. And, you know, and then the other one is, it was the hunger winter, and it was extremely cold, the coldest winter on record, and a lot of young kids and older people died during that period. And we had this little stove and in this small little room that we heated in, you know, and I still can feel the cold. And then the other part, the anxiety of losing the parent, the only one. And everybody had their own issues and problems, so you were pretty much on your own then, and got counseling for that actually in my late 50s, the inner child. Very emotional actually. And, you know, but what I do now is that usually on the week of the Remembrance Day, I speak to 2 or 4 schools about why the 2 minutes of silence, why it is so important to think of it in terms of, you know, how quickly everything can change and taking things for granted. And obviously on TV we see now, you know, the things in the Ukraine, the Middle East, and all the horrors of wars, and, you know, that how thankful we should be for all the things around us. And to me, that part is important too. I feel I have an obligation to talk about that because I was there and still remember those parts as a child. And then the other part that a lot of people forget is that after the war is over, at some point, it's not over, because then families that have been, my dad came back after 5 years. He was a stranger and never quite connected again in the same way. He was affected by PSD and a number of other things. So families, it could take up to a generation before they got back to a sense of normal, whatever that means. And, you know, so it's were challenges. So every day when I fly, I do a lot of flying, and that's probably from that point. I've been a pilot since 1967. I love flying, and then I fly a lot because of my business. And every time I sit in a plane, I sit by the window and I look outside and say, it's paradise, it's paradise. And how lucky we are, right? You know, so.
I agree. You know, I truly believe that in life we find purpose. You know, it doesn't, you know, sometimes it lands in our lap. Sometimes it's something that just resonates with us. But I knew my whole life that there was one thing that I wanted to do, and that was that I wanted to be a mom. And from there, I had always been fascinated with medicine and nutrition and everything. So I had taken so many nutrition classes. And, in my early 20s, I was a personal trainer and I exercised a lot, and it was all about being healthy. So really learning a biomedical approach to healing the body and the brain was fascinating to me, because there's always something underlying. There truly is. And when I wrote the book, it was to be a guide to parents. First of all, to tell my story, because it was a story of hope and inspiration. And if people give me the excuse that they don't have money to pay for this or that, or a gluten-free diet or whatever, I don't fall for it, because me and my husband during this time had lost everything. So he had lost his business. Our home went into foreclosure. I had sold everything that I own to pay for treatments for Noah. We short sailed our house to take him to the Ukraine for stem cell therapy. I bartered for treatments. There wasn't a single doctor or anybody that could say no to me, because I was very determined. And this is where I say I set a clear intention to create something for my son. And I did. But I feel if I would have stopped for one moment to feel sorry for myself, I would not have accomplished what I did with my child. And so today I go around and I share that with others. I inspire families. Also, a part of my book is a little bit of a guidebook for parents, new parents, those that might even think that their child has autism, because I didn't have answers. Nobody gave me a guidebook. And then all about biomedical intervention and different types of treatments and therapies. And I created the conference because there's so many new therapies and treatments that come out, and there's so much new science, and it just continues to grow, and it fascinates me. So giving them the latest and greatest and the most updated information is truly what I was determined to do. So I am super excited, to see what the future holds, to host my first event. People can go through autismhealth.com and they can register, and really just getting the word out. And, maybe finally I'll do a book tour, because I haven't done one yet.
No, I like what you're doing, and you remind me in a way of my wife. She is very much into health, spends a lot of time becoming knowledgeable about it, and she is vegan. I'm probably 80-20, and and she is very aware of health in particular, and so. And then the other part that I'm doing right now, I'm writing one more book, two more books next year actually, one on the forest industry, but the other one, more importantly, is that the title is Living Young, Dying Old. And that's about quality of life more so than age. I know so many people that say, no, I'm too old, I'm 45 already, so that doesn't work, and I can, how about this, that, or the other, well, I can't do that, I'm too old now, or whatever. Or people that are not happy with the things that they are doing, finding your passion, living the dream, and saying to me, I say, John, are you living the dream? I say, absolutely. I get up in the morning at 5:30, and I think I'm late. And I always make my bed, and every day to me is one of excitement, and so that's what I do, and that's kind of what drives me. And then the other one, in terms of which you may find interesting, diet extremely important in understanding this precious gift that we got, our bodies that are so forgiving up to a certain extent, and the sooner we become knowledgeable and aware of it, that we can treat it with kindness. So what you may find interesting, Tracy, is that I do all the shopping for even for my wife. And if I go into a grocery store, I always walk in the outside of the store, not on the inside. That's where all the bad stuff is. But looking at the greens and all of those kind of things. And then the other part, as you did, we all get a signal in times. So let me say this, is that when I found the book, and I opened the book in January of 1997, Driven to Distraction, it gave me the light about ADHD, of understanding. Now it became clear to me what had happened in the past and why ADHD. Then I discovered that it was a superpower, and I speak about that, and I do a lot of other things. The book was written by Dr. Hollywell in probably early 90s. He's going to be on my podcast in the next couple of weeks, actually. Isn't it amazing? And that is like the gentleman that you met in the hallway and he talked to you. In a way, he is that to me to a certain extent. By reading that book and understanding it better, I became knowledgeable about being ADHD. But for all those years, 58 years, and then since the time I was 14, it was, if I look at you as your personality, is you are a very determined individual. You're a clear thinker in terms of what you want to do, and obviously Noah became a trigger to you to be successful and do and still do today, although he is likely doing well at 18 and Steve and all the people around you, but you're still determined to give back the things that you got and that made you successful in all those things. And to me, in a certain extent, the same happened, although I was a late bloomer. But I'm going to live till I'm 120, so I got still time. The other part that I was going to mention to you, I'm also very much involved in staying fit. So I go to the gym, and everybody gets a trigger. I nearly died in 2008. I had diverticulitis. I don't know if you're familiar with diverticulitis, but it's so it ruptured, and I had 48 hours to get something done about it, but I had a fairly high threshold for pain. That was not good. In any event, I survived it all, but it gave me the trigger to say I have to take diet more serious. My wife always did already, but I was kind of a slow learner. But that triggered me to diet is critically important, and then the other one is going to the gym. And I hired a trainer, went to the gym, and then after doing that I was out of shape, and gyms are intimidating because if you go down there and you look out of shape, I thought everybody was watching me and saying, well, what is he doing here? I didn't even know how to sit on a piece of equipment. Anyway, I stayed there for about 6-7 years, and then somebody said to me, have you ever thought about competing? I said, me? And so I did that, and then I competed bodybuilding and physique here in northern BC, came in second and third, second bodybuilding, third in physique, qualified me for the provincials, succeeded in there, and then went to the nationals and qualified for the Arnolds. And then COVID came, and now I'm again working out again. I want to compete again in 24, and I want to be at the Arnolds. I already emailed to Arnold. He said he was going to meet me there in 24, and so again, that's a goal for me, to stay fit physically, mentally, and all those things that are important to you as well, and then to share it with others, coming from the heart and spontaneously.
I hear you. I mean, that's the most important thing, is to, as I say, speak from spirit, because we're all spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. And it's whatever it is that you choose to do with this time that you have here, my husband and I are 100% all about being in service. He's a successful entrepreneur. We both grew up from nothing. And it really is like, as you know, there's no making millions off of writing a book unless you are writing a Harry Potter story.
Yeah.
But it is to change lives and make a difference. So my whole goal was to give a tool wrapped up in one little, I don't know if I could,
Yeah, I can see
there
it.
we
Yeah,
go.
I love it. I love it.
So to give a tool in one book, everything that I could shove in here that I felt that a parent would need. It's definitely not about me profiting off of it. I've probably put way more into marketing and everything than I'll ever get back, but that's okay. I carry books everywhere with me. If I see moms, I'll just pull it out, sign it, and give it to them. Especially new moms. You never know. An
Yeah.
inspiring story could change someone's life. And there are moments where I'll see new moms with new babies, and I will pull out my book and I will say, I wrote a book. And if I gave you a copy and would you read it knowing that it could possibly save your child's life?
Yeah.
And I haven't had a parent tell me no yet.
Yeah.
But I truly feel like I not only have a purpose, but I have a mission. And that's to educate families, to live from that godly space, and bring hope and inspiration to so many around the world, not just here in the United States. I've been contacted by so many parents all over the world, and thanking me for the contribution of writing a book. And I just did what I knew was the right thing to do.
So, and I do exactly the same as you do, Tracy. It is not that I'm going to make a small fortune. Probably I make a small fortune on it. That was never the purpose of the books. It was sharing with others the things that I deeply believe in, and then to be willing to be vulnerable about it, because I'm not perfect. So, and against all odds includes all the things: the falling down, standing up again, and all. This is not success, that's not what it is about. It's falling down, standing up, and then the same with ADHD Unlocked. I felt I had an obligation to speak about it, and I still do today, among other things, entrepreneurship and all the other things I speak about, but that is one of them, and there virtually is not a day that goes by that I have people talking to me and saying that, I have somebody in my family affected by ADHD or slow learning, or the other part I say about the book, not only my book, but other books about ADHD, is that people that are affected by slow learning or things that are similar to ADHD, including autism for that matter, and, is that I believe that the book that a couple of things actually, that initially I thought, as was understood, that about 8% of the population are affected by ADHD. I believe, and many others do now too, that it is probably closer to 20% or more. So that is virtually not a day that does not go by that I do not speak to people about it and saying, that I have people in my family and my friends or in the workplace. So what I say now is everybody should read the book, not only mine, there are many others, and become familiar with autism or ADHD or some of the other things,
They're all
trauma.
spectrum disorders: ADD, autism, ADHD, behavioral disorders. They're all spectrum disorders.
Exactly. and so become knowledgeable about it. And then I had a good example is a couple of weeks ago or so that some fella came up to me and said that he really, I give away a lot of my books. The purpose is not to make a fortune on it like you do, but to share it with others. And this fella said that that he had a 15-year-old son that was really troubled by ADHD, and so he got a copy of my book and they read it together. And I found it just amazing. And then as I speak about it, I'm a classic example. I look at it as a superpower. I could not do all the things that I'm doing, as doing the writing, managing the companies, and then speaking and doing all and podcasting and doing the other things, if it were not for the fact that I'm ADHD. And and so I look at it as a gift more so than a liability, but certainly not a disorder. So it is just a question of how can I make more use of the tools that I have and unlock it. But first and foremost, know, and that took me many, many years till I was nearly 62 when I got diagnosed, that I'm okay, I'm as good as anybody else, and we are all individually special as to who we are, and all the other things don't matter. And then to give back to others and be part of the culture and count our blessings every single day, and look at you as an individual, not you, but you in a general sense as an individual. Your body is precious and forgiving, but don't abuse it, because you only got one of them, and treat it well, so.
And trust your God-given immunity to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
So, God created our bodies to be self-healing mechanisms, and we keep shoving stuff into our bodies that are foreign, and we don't know what it is, and our bodies don't know what it is. Then it takes its toll. It definitely does.
And so what I'm doing with my book, Living Young, Dying Old, is not only, it's the quality of life. And quality of life means precisely what you were saying, is treat yourself mentally, physically, and this precious body that you have, and don't abuse it, because at some point it will not continue to do that. Otherwise, and then give back to others and understand how precious it all is.
Absolutely.
Tracy, anything else that comes to mind? We had quite a conversation, and I can obviously spend.
Absolutely. Well, I'm always open. My book can be found wherever books are sold. But if anybody ever has a question for me, they can reach out to me at Tracy, Tracy, at warriormom.org. So I'm happy to coach parents, but I will not coach a parent if they're not willing to do the work. That is one thing that I do stress. My time's valuable, as everybody's is. But if I'm going to get excuses and, people are going to play victim, I just, I will wish them well on their journey. It's sad, but I just won't, I'm not the coach for them, right? And if anybody would like to attend the conference, they can use promo code OFFER75 and get $75 off at autismhealth.com.
What's the location, Tracy?
Oh, so it'll be in San Antonio, Texas, at the JW Marriott Hill Country Resort and Spa. It is a beautiful 5-star resort. All meals will be included. It'll be a wonderful 2-day event of many doctors and scientists and parents, educating, some of the best scientists and doctors in the nation, educating parents on what are the links, what are the emotions, how do we those.
And when is it again?
So it'll be February 2nd and 3rd of 2024.
And reservations can be made now as we speak?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so that we covered quite a bit of ground here, Tracy. I'd like to stay in touch with you. I will send you signed copies of these. I will include an extra copy for Noah, signed to him, on ADHD.
Or you could just sign one to me and him, because I don't foresee you going anywhere anytime quick. But
yeah,
I'd love to send you a book as well.
Good, and Scott will get you the right address so afterwards.
Okay.
And so
and then hopefully I'll make it up there one day.
I would, or even if you come to Victoria, Vancouver, be in contact with me, because I'm all over the web, and we will make sure that you have my phone numbers and contact point.
Sure.
Okay, that sounds good, Tracy. Thank you. It was a real privilege to have you on my podcast, and you're an inspiration, not only to me and to my podcast, but the people around the world, and hearing about your commitment and your book. I'm sure it will draw interest, and let's make sure we stay in touch.
Thank you. Well, many blessings to you and your loved ones, and a very happy holiday season. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tracy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.